Ladies and gentlemen, this is Andrew Skoshi. Along with Pranali Shah, on behalf of Team HR, extend a warm welcome to one and all who have gathered here today. This is indeed the most awaited day for every HR student in the campus, and we are certain that it would be an enriching experience for all of us. I'm sure that when we leave the campus today, we will take back home some valuable insights from the sessions that are lined up. ITM aims at providing industry-relevant, competitive and professional management education with global academic perspectives through training programs, live research and consultancy assignments with a vision to produce socio-economic growth of a nation.
Where there is light, darkness cannot be. Where knowledge enters, ignorance must exit. Primarily, light, meaning Deepa, signifies knowledge. All our activities must be governed by the light of knowledge. Knowledge dispels ignorance and darkness. We bow to knowledge, which is the greatest wealth in our lives. So the lamp which is kept lit for all our auspicious occasions is a witness to our thoughts and actions. I hereby invite the dignitaries to light the ITM Divya Jyoti and seek the blessings from the Almighty.
Well, good morning, Mr. Das, Professor Mani, dignitaries of the dais, faculty, staff, students, ladies and gentlemen. Gives me immense pleasure to be here this morning addressing this gathering. And the topic and the theme that's been chosen for the day, I think, is extremely apt. Especially since we're seeing a lot of churn, we're seeing a lot of cutbacks, we're seeing a lot of layoffs, and traction in the industry is really not happening. So somewhere down the line, the term resilient caught my attention. And I googled up resilience, especially from the HR perspective, and there were plenty of options which came by. The first thing that I perhaps understood is that most of us carry intellectual capital, organizations carry intellectual capital, which is what people bring to the table. Organizations also look for people with social capital, which is who these people know. But there's something which is extremely critical and crucial, and that is psychological capital. And psychological capital actually is an aggregation and a sum up of what we are and where we want to be. When you look at psychological capital, it's a very heavy word, but if you were to do a deep dive in terms of what it actually means, it's very simplistic. Psychological capital rests on 4 pillars. The first one is hope, the second one is optimism, the third is confidence, and emanating from these 3 is a factor called resilience. Thank you.
For those of us who still are groping as to what Dr. Raja was mentioning about resilience when he got talking to us, I think one of the key things why we are focusing on the word resilience is if you look at the theme, we said building, I guess everybody is comfortable with that word. Intellectual capital, we safely assume it's you and me, no questions about that. We assume we are all intellectuals and therefore we possess the capital. Beyond boundaries is the catchphrase these days. We talk about global managers, we talk about diminishing boundaries between countries and nations, we talk about workforce which is transient across So if you look at these 5-6 words which we focus on the theme, we suddenly realize the most complicated, if I might use the word, is resilient. And Dr. Raja, I think, has told us sufficiently about resilience. For me, resilience focuses just on one thing. Can I bounce back? For me, resilience is the ability to cope up with any situation. For me, resilience is fighting back against the odds and still surviving.
According to me, I think Dr. Raja, Professor Mani, they express their conceptual understanding and how do they perceive about resilience. But what I understand resilience, besides the thought processes shared, is how we are adaptive, how we are passionate, what innovations and change and value add that we bring, and how we can survive in the tough and difficult situations. Earlier, maybe if you recall, your Great Depression was in the year of 1929. We came across a bigger economic crisis after 50 years, around 1980s. Then early 91, 92, we faced another problem after 10 years. We faced another problem in 97, 98, the major one after 6-7 years. We faced again in 2002 and 3, little lesser, but time duration changed to 5 years. After 3-4 years of good growth, we again faced in 2008 and 9, 7, 8 and 9, early part of 8 and 9. And after a good period of 1.5 years, we again faced in end of 2011 and 12 and 13. So the message or the insight that I have got is that these ups and downs of economy is going to stay. The duration of these economic ups and downs are going to become much shorter and shorter. And it is bringing its own challenges and difficulties, and therefore it increases the way we need to manage our businesses.
Friends, Professor Mani is telling to his left side all Gen X and his right side all Gen Y. When he is finding a different mixture of generations on a small dais of 4 people here, you can imagine what type of generation mix you are having in top corporates in the world today. Every company, whether it is Reliance or Coca-Cola or pharmaceutical company or any company today, you see the toughest challenge people are facing today is how to interact with the different generations. In your own home, you have different generation of people. Your grandfather was talking something, grandmother was talking something, your mother is saying something, your father is telling something, your sister would talk to you something, and your newly born baby would talk something. So how to connect with different generations? Each generation would come to you with different characteristics, with different aspirations, with different habits, and with different motivational factors. To motivate a small child, you require a different amount of skill. And to convince your grandfather, you need a different types of skills. So how to mix up these different generations gap? That is another toughest challenge. This challenge is not faced by only employees. This challenge is faced by employees also. When you join a corporate, you find that the person sitting in the cabin with only 2 small grey hair on his head was talking all something nonsense to you. But at the same time, when you come out, the newly joined person, fresh recruited from the college, would say something different. How to match up these 2 expectations is a tough challenge for you.
So probably I would focus more on the more tangible and transactional things, and more from the HR perspective, what we could do as HR to contribute to business, because you would hear most of the speakers or CEOs or business leaders saying HR needs to understand business and HR needs to contribute to business. So how do we contribute? How do we help cutting costs or managing the top line? And all this happens just because of the intellectual or the psychological or the human capital. Right? All of you would be reading in books saying men, money and material is what is required to run the industry. But in every forum today we hear more of human capital than of any other capital. Shyam also talking about, he coming from finance, we were talking more about people. So it highlights the importance of people in the organization and the contribution. So my current experience being in compensation and benefits, so let me put some thoughts to the team here on what really have been some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we see in the boundaryless employee force that we have. In MST or Merck Pharma as we call it, we have around 90,000 employees with more than 170 countries operating globally. What I have seen in all the experiences that I have, it's one of the organizations that you never feel that whether you're in a global organization or a local organization. And really the achievement of the organization has been, if I were to add some more C's, is in the culture, the communication, and if I go down to HR, it's actually compensation, career. These are the 4 C's which really had the organization blend through very well across 170 countries and 90,000 workforce. 4 years back, we had a major merger with another organization called Shrimpla. So there were a lot of people who were double on one single role. So there was a lot of realignment, restructuring which was required.
When I was in campus, the biggest name on campus, and as much as you all see my love for Coke, the biggest name on campus was Nokia. That is 2009. And in our placement season, so we all students had to rank companies, which is your first choice company, second, third, so on and so forth. And for almost 90% of the students, the first choice company was Nokia, including me. And to my good luck, Nokia did not shortlist me, neither in summers or in finals. But it was the most preferred employer on campus. And we had Nokia speakers coming and waxing eloquent about how they build machines which are targeted to the mass market and which are robust and which will last and so on and so forth. And somebody just came from behind and took over the entire market. So much so that few months back Nokia was sold to Microsoft. And this to me is an example of borderless world.
Anyone can answer. Is managing women workforce more difficult than managing men?
Oh, is it? See, as a HR manager over the last 5 years, I've seen no. For me, it has not been more difficult to manage women.
When it comes to work, if you look at organizations, the expectations from whether you are a man or a woman, it is the same. And when you go back home, the expectation from whether you are a man or a woman is same at home as well today.
Are going to present a discussion on a financial analysis of 2 mammoths of Indian steel industry, Tata Steel and Steel Authority of India Limited. 2 premier steel authorities of India.
To all my dear HR students who have worked ensure that the country becomes a grand success. I would also appreciate the contribution and participation of all our PGDM students, F1, F2,